Hi everyone, Sam here. Welcome back to a brand new city that you guys have not seen before. And today I just want to go through with you guys 6 different ways to make your city a little bit more realistic and a little bit more believable. Now, of course, there's going to be many different other ways that you can improve your city and make it more realistic, but these are just 6 general really good points. And of course, if you have any other really great suggestions, let us all know in the comments below. And of course, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. And also my Instagram is there if you'd like to message me and chat about whatever. So let's get into the first tip. The tip number 1 is basically just following the landscape that you're working with on your map. So instead of doing really harsh grid lines and trying to make your city really perfect in terms of symmetry, things like that, why not just follow the landscape that you have? So for example, like I've done here, I followed around the shape of the bay, and then all of the surrounding streets have basically followed that curvy shape that I'm working with. So you can also do the same for on the sides of mountains. So instead of going straight up a mountain, you might want to do some more curvy lines that follow the shape of the side of the hill. And if you have some really sharp cliff areas, probably try to avoid that. So really just try to follow your landscape that you have. And also another great one is you can follow the shape of the sides of your forest areas. So instead of just bulldozing all of your forest areas, you can just follow the outskirts of, or the edge of the forest, and it creates a really nice wavy shape as well. If you have a really steep area, you can do more diagonal roads like this, and it just makes it look so much more natural. Another really important tip is your building heights. So obviously, cities generally don't have, for example, a really high skyscraper and then right next to it is a 1-story building. So you want to try to layer it. So obviously you think of it as stairs, and the top of the stairs is going to be your highest buildings. And then as you go down the stairs, you keep going down and down, step by step by step, and eventually you'll get down to your 1-story houses. So you can see right here how I've done it. So on the left side, it's really all low, maybe 1 or 2 level buildings. And then slowly as you get to the right side of the map, it's slowly built up and up and up. And this is such a realistic thing that you guys should all really implement. So instead of doing really harsh differences, try to avoid, like I said, really high buildings next to really low buildings. You should really try to just make it flow out slowly. And if you have a really big downtown area with a lot of high buildings, you should probably have a lot of suburban area around it as well, because the higher those buildings are, the more suburban area that you will need to actually make it look more realistic. So tip number 3 is building clusters. So for example, a cluster could be a cluster of commercial buildings that are along a side of a road, or they could be sort of next to your bay area like I've done here, and they should definitely be your main hub of your little area. So if you have a town or if you have an intersection right here, you should try to work in some commercial bits just to spread out the commercial as well, because you don't want to have commercial just in one spot. You should really do lots of different little clusters. And if there's an area of traffic that you know is going to be really high traffic, you should probably build more commercial around those really busy intersections like I've done here. So I knew this area was going to be busy in the future, and that's why I put in a lot of office space and a lot of commercial space as well. If you also have a lot of main roads that connect, you can put in a lot of different, basically what I've done here. So you can see there's a lot of industrial, there's commercial, there's some office spaces, and since, like I said, it's going to be a busy area, you don't really want residential in those areas along the main roads. So you want something that can handle the loud noise and all of the traffic and the amount of people. So tip number 4 is basically making your whole city come alive. So instead of just looking at your city from a really zoomed out view, you're looking at the overall image. What about when you zoom in? So for me, a city is really alive, it's really engaging, it's really such an accomplishment when I see a lot of people walking around and I see a lot of cars everywhere, and even seeing cars parked in car parks like this and just people wandering around everywhere. It's such a great feeling. So you can easily do that by encouraging more walkability, more cycling. You can do that by putting in lots of shops and maybe limiting driving in those areas as well. There's just so many different things that you could do. You could even just put in parks or pathways like this. And it really does encourage more walkability, especially like seeing all of the bus stops right there. So you can see there's huge clusters of people. It just makes it look so much more alive. And it's definitely something that you should think about, because when I see an area that is really deserted, there's no cars, there's no people, I don't really like it that much. So I like to see it alive. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I always use roads where cars can park on the side. So I never use roads where there's no parking at all, because when there's no parking, it looks a little empty, right? So you want it to look more alive. So you can see, for example, right there on that street, there's cars parked on the side, and it just looks more realistic, and I love it. Road hierarchy is the next tip, and it is kind of self-explanatory, but for those of you who don't know what that means, it basically means you need to select the right type of road for specific areas. So for example, you wouldn't put a really large avenue on a really quiet residential area, right? So you would probably put the large avenue in really high traffic areas, so maybe in an area full of industrial or really busy office spaces, and then you'd use really small roads on quiet residential streets, which I have done here. So if you have a really large road but there's no traffic on it, it's going to look a little bit odd, right? But if you have a really small road that's causing a lot of traffic issues, then obviously you're not doing the right thing either. So you need to make sure that you get the right balance. And I can't really just say, like, this is how you need to do it, because every city is different. Every suburb is different for each person building in each city, wherever. But it's just something that should be remembered anyway. So for example, if we look at that bridge right there, I did 4-lane bridge because there's different options where they want to go, but basically on this map it's all 2-lane roads, so I really wanted a more condensed look for this area, and since the traffic isn't too crazy, I can get away with smaller roads. But definitely this is something that you should consider. Not all roads go well with all areas, so keep that in mind. If not, there's plenty of road hierarchy maps that you can just find on Google Images. And the last tip is kind of similar to making it come alive. It's all about smaller details. So for example, what I mean by that is, like right there, we have fences, we have the bushes, we have little pathways connecting up little areas. And another great thing is putting in lots of trees. Now I know you guys are probably rolling your eyes whenever I say stuff about trees, but when you fill in areas with trees, it really makes it more just filled in. So for example, if we look at this area here, it's an awkward little space, right? We can't really put much in, so I just put in some trees, some pathways, and some seating areas, and it really just made the area look more filled in. It looked just much better. And then for example, right here we have just little pathways, not that they're really going anywhere, but it just fills it in, and there's lots of little trees and fences, and for example here we have tables. So it's all of these small things that make it so much better. It makes me personally feel like I just enjoy the city so much more. And another really great tip is on corners where buildings don't really fit in. So for example, you can see right there on the corner next to the boardwalk, I put in some trees there, because without the trees, it's just an awkward space and it doesn't really look like much is going on. So just putting in a few trees to fill in those awkward spaces, that it helps so much. And you can also put in trees that are inside different buildings. So for example, right here, we have, without the trees in the middle, there's going to be basically nothing. It's just going to look really awkward. So just throwing in a few trees, it just makes it look more filled in, and really it does change the city so much. And this is something that I always do. I don't think I ever really talked about it, but definitely just fill in all of the awkward little gaps, and it does change your city tremendously. Now I have one more bonus tip for you guys, and it's basically don't plan too much. So when I say don't plan too much, you can still plan, but don't go too overboard with it, because a city looks more realistic when it develops naturally. So it will develop over time slowly, things will slowly appear, you might have to upgrade roads, you might have to put in new things. But if you really plan it too much, it doesn't really turn out that good, and I found that out through a lot of trial and error. So just have a rough plan and just see how it develops, and I'm sure it'll turn out much better. So anyway guys, thank you all for watching. That's my 6 tips for making your city more realistic. Now of course there's going to be many more, but these were just some that should be highlighted. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye guys.